all that stuff aside that we've already talked about, if we can break it down, the battle that we're doing is gallons per minute versus BTUs. When you really look at everything, nozzle pressures, nozzle reaction, pump pressures, and when you look at it, I know they've got low gallonage fog nozzles now. Mm-hmm. You know, and I really think the only reason they got them is because they're trying to compete with these, but
I think they had their specific purpose coming out, being used in high-rise applications or places where we have low pressure, still needed a great stream to be able to be provided.
And I'll give you that. I mean, you look at what happened at One Meridian Plaza when those guys got killed, and when you really look at that off of standpipe operations,
right,
a lot of departments, not just northern departments, have switched to a smooth bore on those because of those low pressures. But that aside, 50 pounds is what you need at the nozzle for this.
Right.
And a lot of departments, what is this one?
That was 85, I believe.
Yep. And it'll give you 250 gallons a minute at 115.
Right.
All right.
So you can get more out of it.
Right. So, but the majority of the ones out there, you know, the Akron turbojets and stuff that a lot of people are still using, it's 100 pounds of nozzle pressure.
Right.
So half.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I've heard the people say, well, it's going to kink easier. Not if you move your hose like you're supposed to. That goes back to the training thing.
It goes back to the whole training
Yes,
issue.
sir.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's what it is. You know, people, I hate to say it, but people have just lost the ability to move hose. Mm-hmm. Everybody, they're doing the nose to butt syndrome is what I call it. Everybody's trying to get on the nozzle.
Right.
You know, so they're not spacing out on the line like they should be. But, you know, 50 pounds, 185. So let's take 2.5 nozzles for a second. What did your previous department keep on their 2.5-inch lines?
Had a fog nozzle and a stack tip.
Okay. Your fog nozzle, was it like an Akron turbojet?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's set 100 pounds of nozzle pressure, 250 gallons a minute max.
Correct.
Okay. Now on the 2.5 with a smooth bore, most of them have stack ticks on it. You got an inch tip, inch and an eighth, and inch and a quarter. So that's 210 gallons a minute with a 1 inch, 265 with an inch and an eighth, and 318, 320 with with an inch and a quarter tip. So I mean, you can, you know, bring, once again, it's bringing the amount of bullets to the, you know, that you need to win the war.
And I could see in a larger fire application in which you would use a 2.5. We don't grab them as much now with inch and 3/4 line and the new technologies that they have. But I could see under that auspice of if you're saying, okay, we're in a defensive mode, or we're in a mode that we've got to get just large amounts of water. I could see, and at a reach because of closeness, not being able to get to it, I could see smooth bore all day long on that. Mm-hmm. You know, I don't think in those previous studies was funny. You know, one of the statements that were in those studies was there is no magic pill. And it really isn't. We have to use a lot of tools, and unfortunately, in the fire service, it seems like we use a lot of our tools incorrectly instead of in the places they should be.
You're right. And I
mean, you know, we should be using these to keep doors open, but we use them for different things. But you know, anyway,
that's okay. You can use what I said about this one earlier. But you know, and I agree with you. This nozzle has its application. You know, I'm not going to take this to a propane tank fire.
Right.
You're just not going to. That's going to hurt. You know, I'm not going to have any turnout gear or skin left. You know, and sometimes I think people just got to agree to disagree.
Right.
And you're right. Everything that we have is a tool. But you know, I still go back to where did it come from, and where is it written anywhere that a 30-degree pattern is what we should be setting our nozzles at for interior firefighting. You know, I haven't read it.
Right.
You know, I've done a lot of research on it, but I can't find it anywhere other than, you know, you've got the old grunt from the fire department that's been there for years and years,
right.
and he'll tell you he's eat it, drank it, and
right.
lived it, and he says this is the way you do it, boy.
Well, there's a study by I think it's Wiseman. I hope I didn't mispronounce his name correctly. In fact, he co-authored a book, The Effectiveness of Fog Nozzles. And in that book, they talked about how to properly use fog nozzles in interior fire attack. You know, and again, it's the dynamics. What is it you're dealing with? What specific, you know, fire type do you have? Is it large fire, small fire? Is it room and contents? Is it, you know, is it confined? Is it not? So all of these things go into play. But under the conditions of our normal fires, normal room and contents fires, he goes in as co-author of that book, and he gives various techniques and advantages of using the fog nozzle. And again, going back to the rate of flow, because you know what we're trying to do is we're trying to take away BTUs, we're trying to get water in, we're trying to get those BTUs out, but used correctly, again, it goes back to almost an efficient use. And I know some firemen say, well, you know, I don't care about how much water's going, it's a fire, we're going to put the fire out. Right. And I'll agree with that to some degree, because you're going to have some damage that's going to happen, period. So if you'd save the floor from getting wet, what does it really matter? But we have just enormous amounts of overuse of both fog nozzles and straight streams. And again, that goes back to our tactics. But with that going in place, I think where we fall the most in our fire department operations is salvage. We tear up a lot more than's tore up when we get there.
Correct.
And this is one area, again, when we go back to I look at efficiency and use. What is it we know we can use efficient? What is it that we know under certain conditions? And again, it goes back to those conditions. But if we have our normal fire operation, you know, a fog nozzle can be used with lower amounts of water. Large fires, you know, that may not be the case. The larger the fire, the more dispersion that's going to happen. You know, the more evaporation that may happen from fog nozzle versus straight stream. Perfect time to throw this to the side, pick up your straight stream and go. You know, just in what I'm looking at today and things. But I agree, you know, right now we probably just have to agree to disagree. I think what would be great is if we could get some houses and we could set up similar scenarios and be able to go in and measure heat both in the room, the amount of water flows that goes in the room, and do attacks with both fog nozzles and straight streams.
And I agree, because I know what's going to happen.
You're going to be disappointed.
You're going to come out and you're going to be all about the smoothbore nozzle.
And see, I think it's going to be exactly the opposite way. So, you know, I guess here's really one of those things I just have to say, what planet are you from?